Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show we break down the latest and greatest World Cup action. Joining me today, it's Michael McCubbin, it's Ali, and we're going to revisit Belgium's draw with Croatia, which has dire consequences for Roberto Martinez's men. Now, congratulations, it's got to be said, to Morocco and Croatia, who go through in first and second respectively in Group F. But it means that Belgium and their golden generation have crashed out, gone out on a whimper, and left us to sort of unpick it. Now, we're going to do, as we classically do, a winner, a loser, and move on to a bit of a talking point, which is, you know, who should stay and who should go from the current squad moving into future tournaments. But let's start with one man's performance, Romelu Lukaku, who was extremely active when he came on. But has grabbed all the headlines for all the wrong reasons come the end of the game. Ali.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with injury and stuff, if that was the reason that he didn't come on in the first half, straight away in the second half he made an impact. It was such a boring game to begin with. We were talking about the temperature, I think, of the stadium. It was that boring. And I think, you know, when he came on, just the chances that he got, he was so threatening with his back towards the goal as well that he could open up play. And I felt that they were just missing that. Obviously, we're probably going to talk about the other weaknesses Belgium have had, but he just looked like such a threat. And, But then we look at the stats of when, you know, he's just missed all these chances, and it was just not.
Yeah.
Right for him, was it?
I mean, I think 0-0 at 70 minutes was a fair reflection of the game. Yeah. Very representative of what we saw, which was pretty dire, like Ali said. But Lukaku, I mean, comes on. We're very complimentary about his presence at first. A few nice touches, bringing the wide players into the game. But then Mike finishes with an XG of 1.68, which is actually higher than Belgium had generated in their previous two matches. Full stop from five shots.
Mean, it's mad. Yeah, from 5 shots in 45 minutes. I would be surprised if there was another player in this tournament who had a XG that high from
without scoring.
From one game in general. Like even with scoring, I mean, I would even be surprised if Mbappe had an XG of that in a game. That's truly remarkable. And yet, like he just, you know, I mean that first one, that open goal, it was actually not at a great angle, and he had, you know, someone closing him down, hit the post. It was actually a decent effort, but that chest, you know, on 90 plus minutes, I mean it's pretty unforgivable. And then Gvardiol, who we'll get onto, amazing block from him, you know, with a minute left of the game to go. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Lukaku, I feel a bit sorry for him. It's harder to feel sorry for him now than it used to be because, you know, his kind of conduct when he was at Chelsea last year was a little bit embarrassing, wasn't it? But, I mean, Belgium just should have won that game. They really should have. I mean, you know, they have not been good enough this tournament. So, again, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for them because in the first 2 games, I just thought they were really, really poor by their standards.
Yeah, I actually thought they stole 3 points from Canada.
Yeah.
So on the balance of things, they still deserve to be third.
Yeah, probably. I think that's true. And yeah, like for Martinez, it was like, yeah, that change of Lukaku at half-time was absolutely the right thing to do. I think generally the substitutions worked pretty well. They were pretty positive.
From both sides.
But it begs the question, why were these players not starting to begin with? Why wasn't a chance taken on Lukaku in a game as big as this? Why wasn't he starting the game? Why was someone like Amadou Onana not really called upon this World Cup, despite the fact that he's been in tremendous form for Everton and looks like one of the most promising kind of box-to-box midfielders in Europe?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because we might be talking about their next generation in just a moment.
Of course.
Get ahead of ourselves here, but let's talk about Gvardiol for just a second because we didn't want to make this all about Belgium and be totally pessimistic. And Gvardiol, who's been absolutely superb throughout this tournament, once again was a bit of a difference maker in the back line. Lovren, I think, has been solid during this World Cup as well. But Gvardiol is the jewel in their crown at the moment, isn't he? And in this game, he was quality. I mean, like you said, had big moments, not just that sort of match-saving intervention in the 92nd minute, but a great clearance from Kevin De Bruyne's cross in the 47th minute that looked like it was going to go to the back post as well. And very positive in possession. 1 chance created, 3 long balls completed, 6 passes into the final third, which they're numbers that a midfielder who's had a respectable 90 would generally put up. 8 ball recoveries and 9 clearances as well. They did get very cross-heavy, didn't they, Belgium, towards the end of the game. the talking point here, where can we see him heading after the World Cup? Because heavily linked with Chelsea. Do you think anyone else is going to come swooping in?
I mean, City were linked in the summer as well, weren't they? I think there was even talk of United, but it kind of depends whether Chelsea... I mean, Chelsea, were looking at him and then decided to spend 60 million on Cucurella. So it
and Fofana as well, 70 on him.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So I have my doubts as to whether Chelsea are going to, put up that kind of money for him, like for a defender again. So yeah, it really begs the question who's kind of in for him. I think, it's difficult because it's going to take a team with serious resources. Maybe someone like PSG. I think Real Madrid have kind of sorted their centre-back situation for the next couple of years, I think. Is it going to be a Bayern? Like, that seems like the kind of move, promising defender going from Leipzig to Bayern seems to make sense. But yeah, it's a difficult one because he's got a huge asking price. I think Leipzig would be demanding around 60 million plus for him. So yeah, it's hard to see a team that has the resources and also needs, that kind of reinforcement at the back. Yeah,
absolutely. Where do you think he should go at home? Let us know in the comments below. Now, before we move on to reconfiguring the general composition of Belgium's squad, Ali, did you want to flag anyone else in this game? I know it wasn't a game where an awful lot of people stood out.
Yeah.
We obviously had the timeless Modric as well, putting in another shift, didn't we?
What a man. He is a legend. I just think with Modric, we've seen the comments with Kevin De Bruyne coming out about how this squad is too old. You look at Modric, how old is he, 37?
38, I think,
38. Yeah. And I think also look about when he took Croatia to the
I think you're right, sorry, 37, yeah. Why did I doubt you?
I know. But took Croatia to the World Cup in 2018 with an older squad on average than Belgium. So I think, like that midfield though with Kovacic and Brozovic.
Yeah, Brozovic, yeah.
I think if this is his last World Cup, which it probably is, Modric, then it's very sad.
I actually saw, I think it's Levaja up front for Croatia. I saw him starting this game and I was sort of scratching my head because there was a certain amount of jeopardy for Croatia in this match as well. And it does leave sort of question marks as to how far they can go in the absence of a great point man. I think Petkovic was probably a little bit better when he came on. Like Levaja has only scored around 80 career goals and 28 of them were last season. It's like the Croatian Jamie Vardy on steroids. But aside from that, because of maybe that forward line and the lack of firepower, I maybe think this generation of players for Croatia has perhaps gone as far as they can go. But anyway, we're not going to talk about this generation. We're going to talk about Belgium's generation, aren't we? Something that's been coined the golden generation for the last 2 or 3 tournaments. And it does feel like the end of a chapter, doesn't it? There's 11 players in this squad that are 30 plus. So what I wanted to do with you guys to end this show was let's just have a look at who's in their ranks, who we think might play at the Euros, who we think might feature at the next World Cup, and basically decide who it's time to call time on, which sounds harsh, but the average age of the squad, like you pointed out, extremely high, and they need to start a transition at some point, don't they? Because I think they've left it as late as they can. Sorry. Yeah. So McCubs, do you want to start out with some of the...
someone to put the guillotine on?
Yeah, okay. Let's start with the guillotine then, and then we'll build back towards the positivity,
Well, I mean, I mentioned him before. Amadou Onana is the future of that Belgian midfield. And it just amazed me. I mean, it didn't amaze me that much because I know Roberto Martinez likes to...
he's loyal,
he's loyal to his veterans, but... Axel Witsel just hasn't been at the level that he used to be at for at least 2 to 3 years now. He's barely played as a midfielder as well. I mean, he was playing most of his football, in a back three at Dortmund last year. I'm sure that is probably part of the reason why Simeone signed him for Atletico in the summer. And he's not been any better at Atleti, I would argue. The fact that he was, thinking, well, did he actually start every game? But he was starting, he was
a prominent feature, prominent figure, sorry.
in this tournament, and he did eventually get brought off today. But yeah, I think at 33 years old, I can't see another tournament in him, especially if Martinez does resign or is sacked after this loss.
I think it's a good place to start.
I think he's the first to go, because I think the midfield, it's a bit of a cliche, I think, but I think when teams are performing badly or functioning badly, the midfield is often what you come to first. And I know that the Belgium defence is very old as well, but there's so much potential in that Belgium midfield. Tielemans didn't start as well. Like, it just seemed like such a waste to have Witsel playing in there, where he is like far from the form.
No, I think you're right to identify that area as the area where younger players should have saw more minutes or been entrusted with more minutes. I think let's do the spine. Let's not do the whole 11. I think Onana coming in for Witsel is a great place to start. I mean, McCubb's just touched upon it then, Ali, but Jan Vertonghen, 35, Toby Alderweireld, 33. Of course, Vertonghen's playing for Benfica, isn't he? So he is still playing at a high level. But I doubt either of them will see another World Cup. Would you chop both of them? And is there anyone else in mind? I'm maybe thinking of Eden Hazard.
Eden Hazard, that's as soon as it kind of, when you said this, it came to mind. And it's like his glory days are over. You talk about the golden generation. It was the Eden Hazard in his prime generation, a lot of it was. And I think it is really sad when you see him, not sad, but you can see him come on and he's not what he used to be.
No.
People are just waiting for that magical moment from him. And I think Martinez is almost choosing that over these young, fresh players, because a magic moment from Hazard is amazing. And I just think, he's just trusting his older people too much, and he needs to inject that freshness. I think especially going forward as well.
He did bring Jeremy Doku on, I guess, before he brought Hazard on. So he maybe opted for a bit of youthful exuberance there over an old head. But he was almost, it felt like the Hazard substitution was a bit of a nod to everything that was about to come to a close.
Dance,
and everything had just got too sentimental, McCubbs.
I must admit, though, I think to be fair to Martinez, Doku isn't a regular starter for Rennes despite his talent. De Ketelaere hasn't been a regular starter for Milan either. His career's yet to get going. So out of those attacking young players, it is a difficult one because they haven't come. I think if you are a young, promising player, you kind of do have to be in form for your club, or at least playing regularly to really get that, to really go into a tournament like that and be fully trusted. So I do understand it a little bit from that standpoint. He's got Carrasco and Trossard as options out wide as well. So I'm not overly worried about that part of the squad. I think the worrying thing is where Lukaku's career is going to go over the next couple of years, because they don't have a top striker coming through in the mould of Lukaku. He was using Batshuayi in the first game. He very well taken goal against Canada, but he has never really lived up to his potential, has he?
Mertens starting in this game through the middle. Trossard playing off.
I don't get why he's starting though. But this is where I lose respect for Martinez. I'm sorry, I keep talking about him, but I just think that you've got the likes of Trossard and you're starting Mertens, and I don't respect
what this feels like though, it does feel a little bit like when Belgium went out in the quarterfinals to Wales in 2016. Wilmots was then replaced by Martinez. It feels like I think you have to respect him in that he got Belgium to third at the World Cup. They beat a brilliant Brazil team convincingly in that quarter-final. That is a real crowning moment, I think, for Martinez and this Belgium side. But it is the end of the road. It feels very similar to that, and that it feels like kind of time's up.
I think anyone that said he's completely wasted Belgium's golden generation is overcooking it. That is a bit of sensationalism, and there is caveats, like you've said, with young players not necessarily forcing the issue at club level. That does put in between a rock and a hard place. But if we're going to build this spine, like we said, maybe someone like Wout Faes will get more minutes. He's been really impressive for Leicester. Maybe he could have featured a little bit more throughout this tournament. The Ketelaere cost AC Milan a lot of money. Hasn't been very prolific, has he? But maybe he could have invested in his potential a little bit more, shown him some faith in that regard. And all of a sudden, you do have a fresher looking team. So I think whichever manager comes in, if Martinez doesn't maintain stewardship over this team, it won't be a huge overhaul. There is a spine there, but it will be tough to get them back to that sort of level where they're ranked in the top 3 so consistently over the last decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that probably brings us to the end of this episode. Do we want to shout out anyone from the Morocco game?
Yeah, I think with Morocco, just in general, they've been nurturing really quietly this genuine collection of talent, and I think they haven't lit up the tournament with these incredible statistics. They've been able to manage these top teams and come through with good results. And it's the first time an African team has topped their group since 1998. And I think just the atmosphere. I think you hear the atmosphere of the team in general, and that's what you want, coming together. Not what Belgium are doing. This is what Morocco are doing well.
Yeah, good rapport in the camp.
Absolutely.
Yeah, only the second time 2 African teams have gone through to the knockouts in the same edition of the World Cup as well. Yeah, great to see, and it does feel like home advantage is playing a part.
For sure.
We hear it at the stadium.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding. Did you want to put any shine on any aspects of?
I mean, me and Ali were talking before, I kind of forget that Ziyech was just out of the picture for Morocco for a long time. And credit to the Morocco manager. I'm not going to say his name because I haven't been able to pronounce it right. I'll get it by the end of the tournament, but or by the next round, because they are in the next round, of course. But yeah, the fact that Ziyech has been brilliant, over the last few games, and I think that's a big plus to have such a big character who. Yes, it's well documented that he's not necessarily the easiest to manage, but clearly had that huge falling out with the previous coach, and for him to be back in that side, such a charismatic figure, and really the kind of the first real figurehead of this kind of, I guess we could call it a golden generation of Moroccan talent. I know Hakimi is, really the jewel in the crown, but Ziyech was there in 2018. I think that's a huge positive again psychologically, and we do have to contrast it with Belgium, who seem to be completely out of it in that sense, morale-wise. But yeah, I don't think you can praise this Morocco team enough, because they've been at 2 World Cups now. They were kind of quietly fancied in 2018, but they've got just a really strong spine now. Those 2 fullbacks, fantastic. A strong midfield as well, and and El Naziri, a great, well-taken goal today from a player who's had some difficulties himself in the last 18 months. Yeah,
absolutely. Then, so full of praise for Morocco. A little bit of trepidation there for Croatia, who have gone through, but maybe not in the most convincing fashion, and a big old overhaul for Belgium coming, but. There is some bright sparks in their future, but who will ignite it, we don't know, because Martinez, I'm getting through right now, has actually officially left his post as Belgium manager. A lot of things changing while we're filming this. Initial
feel bad now.
Thoughts
so harsh on him.
Initial thoughts on that, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad he had to go. I just think, I'm sorry.
Love that. I'm glad.
I just think, I don't know, well, no, I do know. I said all the points before, but I think his time was at the end. He's at the end of
it did feel like it'd come to a natural conclusion. With Cubs very, very quickly, because I feel like the show's gone on long enough.
I think we're saying, I think his time had come to an end. It's been 6 years. He has done some great things with that team. I think, I think 2018 was the peak. But yeah, I think it was it was time. I think this Belgian team needs new ideas. And he was saying before the game, we talk about this golden generation, but actually, Belgium have invested a lot in new training facilities, things like that. Belgium will have another golden generation. It feels a little bit like Portugal, say in the 2000s. They had that amazing team, and then they kind of broke up, but then it wasn't too long until a new crop of youngsters came through, and we are seeing that with Belgium. I wouldn't be surprised if in 2-3 years' time another really strong spine starts to take hold.
And that'll be his legacy, right?
Yeah, to an extent.
I think this has been the first truly disappointing tournament for them. Obviously, excellent qualification as well. Took them to number 1 ranked in the world, although a little bit bizarre how they remained as number 2 despite some patchy form. I think he's done a really solid job overall, and I'm sure we will unpack his legacy in future episodes. Now, it kind of just feels like we're crowbarring it onto the end of this show and want to pay it proper lip service. So we'll pick up on it in future episodes. But for now, please like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll catch you later on Euro Football Daily.